The wind screamed across the frozen plains of Sector 9. It was a planet where storms came without warning. The sky was dark, the ground covered in thick snow. Ethan pulled his jacket tighter and kept walking. His oxygen mask was fogging up from the cold air. He was just trying to reach the crashed supply pod before nightfall. But the storm was faster than expected, much faster. His boots sank deep into the snow with every step. His hands were numb, even with gloves on. The tracker on his wrist kept blinking red. "Pod nearby," it said, but visibility was close to zero. He had to trust his instincts now. Finally, he spotted a dark shape through the swirling snow. A broken pod, half buried in ice. He rushed to it, slipping once, then climbing onto the metal shell. The door was jammed, but Ethan forced it open. The inside was cold but dry. Just enough space to survive the night. He set up his small heater, unrolled his sleeping bag, and sat down. Breathing heavily, he removed his mask. His face was red and frozen, but he was alive. For now, suddenly he heard it, a soft knock. He froze, staring at the metal door. Was it the wind? No, it was too clear, too real. Another knock came. This time softer, like someone weak. Ethan stood up slowly and walked to the entrance. He opened the door and gasped. A figure fell into his arms. She was small, barely above his shoulder. Her skin was blue with faint glowing patterns. She was trembling, her eyes wide with fear. She looked alien but not dangerous. Ethan didn't see any weapon, just torn clothing and bare feet in the snow. She was freezing to death. Without thinking, Ethan pulled her inside and shut the door. He wrapped her in an emergency blanket and helped her sit. She didn't speak, just stared at him with tired eyes. He offered her water from his canteen. She drank slowly, carefully. Then she whispered something in a soft voice he couldn't understand. It sounded like safe, or maybe warm. Ethan wasn't sure. The heater was small, not enough for 2 people in this deadly cold, and there was only one sleeping bag. Ethan looked at her shivering, arms wrapped around herself, lips turning purple. She wouldn't survive the night like this. He took a deep breath and pointed to the sleeping bag. He unzipped it and motioned for her to come in. She looked at him with confusion, then nodded slowly. She crawled inside, and Ethan followed carefully, trying to keep some space. But the moment their bodies touched, something strange happened. A soft light spread from her skin. It wasn't fire, but it was warm. Ethan blinked, confused. The air around them changed, almost like the cold was being pushed away. Her breathing slowed, became calm. She closed her eyes and leaned her head on his shoulder. And then she whispered again. This time clearer. "Thank you." Human. Ethan couldn't explain what he felt. It was more than heat. It was like peace entered his bones. The fear, the pain, the storm outside, it all faded. For a few moments, everything was silent. Just the sound of wind outside, and 2 lives inside trying to survive together. He looked at her, this strange girl who came out of the blizzard. Her face was calm now, glowing softly in the dim light. He didn't even know her name, didn't know where she came from or why she was alone. But somehow, it didn't matter. She was no longer a stranger. She was someone he had saved, and maybe she had saved him too. As sleep came slowly, Ethan whispered, "You're safe now." And in her sleep she smiled. Outside the storm howled louder, but inside the wrecked pod, the warmth of 2 beating hearts pushed back the cold. And something new began to grow in that silence, something unexpected. Something neither human nor alien could have planned. Ethan woke up with a strange feeling. Warmth surrounded him like a soft cloud for a second. He forgot he was trapped in a blizzard on a frozen alien world. Then he felt movement beside him, slow and soft. The alien girl was still there, curled close against his side. Her glowing skin gave off a gentle heat, like a living fire. But something was different now. The air didn't feel cold anymore. It felt alive. Ethan slowly pulled back, careful not to wake her. But as soon as he moved, her hand reached for him. She wasn't fully awake, but her fingers gripped his wrist tightly. She whispered again in that same soft voice, "Don't go." He froze, looking down at her. There was fear in her voice, but also something deeper connection. Her hand was small but strong, and it sent a pulse through his skin, like a heartbeat that wasn't his. He stared at their joined hands. And then he felt it, a flash of memory that wasn't his own. A burning village, strange alien faces. Running in fear, he gasped and pulled away, breathing fast. What had just happened? The girl sat up, blinking slowly. Her eyes looked different now, clear, sharp, and focused on him. She placed a hand on her own chest, then pointed at him. "Lyria," she said, her voice a little stronger now. Then she touched his chest. "You." "Ethan." He was shocked. "How do you know my name?" He asked softly. Lyria smiled weakly, then tapped her head in his. "Bond. Heart," she whispered. "Sleep. Warmth. Memory share." Ethan stared, not understanding fully, but he had heard of something like this, rumors from alien cultures. About emotional bonding through touch. He didn't know it could happen so fast. Or by accident. The sleeping bag, the shared body heat. It had triggered something ancient inside her. And now they were connected, even if he didn't choose it. Or did he? He sat back, trying to calm his thoughts. Lyria watched him carefully, as if afraid he would run. He looked at her again, blue skin glowing softly, hair like silver strands, and deep violet eyes that didn't blink. She was scared, but she wasn't hiding it. She was honest in her fear and in her trust, and for some reason, that made him feel responsible. "Okay," Ethan said finally. "I won't leave." Lyria sighed with relief, her shoulders relaxing. Then she reached out and touched his chest again. This time the pulse was gentler, like a quiet voice inside his mind. He could feel her emotions: hunger, exhaustion, sadness, and something else. Gratitude. Suddenly, his wristband beeped. The storm had started to calm. The snow outside was still deep, but visibility was returning. Ethan stood up and looked out the small window. The sky was still gray, but the blizzard had passed. They had survived the night, but now what? He turned back to her. "You can walk?" he asked, slowly, with hand gestures. Lyria nodded, stood shakily, then stepped forward and stumbled. Ethan caught her in time, steadying her gently. She looked up at him, smiling again. This time, he smiled back. They packed up quickly. What little there was, Ethan placed his emergency beacon outside to signal any nearby drone. But deep down, he wasn't sure he wanted the base to find them yet. Something told him Lyria was hiding more than just her name. They started walking, heading south toward the cliffs where the human outpost had signal towers. The snow was thick, and Lyria walked slowly, each step a struggle. Ethan supported her, one arm around her back, as they moved. Strange flying shadows passed above them. Lyria froze, pulling Ethan down into the snow. She pointed up, her face pale with fear. The ships in the sky were not human, and they were searching for her. Ethan's breath caught in his throat. They waited, hidden under a blanket of white, until the ships moved away. Lyria looked at him with eyes full of panic and shook her head. "Not safe," she whispered. "Bad ones. My kind." Ethan felt a chill go through him. If her people were looking for her, and she was afraid of them, it meant only one thing. She was running. From who? From what? He didn't know, but he was now part of her escape. Whether he liked it or not, he looked down at her, this strange girl from another world, who had somehow touched his mind, his body, and maybe even his heart. She was weak, hunted, and alone, and he had offered her warmth without knowing the cost. Now, he was bound to her by something deeper than words. They stood up together, and Ethan whispered, "Let's keep moving." Lyria nodded, holding his arm tightly. And as they walked into the rising light of a frozen morning, the air around them shimmered again, not from heat, but from something ancient, something alive. The bond had only just begun. The wind had slowed, but the danger had not. Ethan and Lyria moved carefully across the snowy plain. Each step was slow, their boots crunching softly through the ice. Lyria clung to Ethan's arm for balance, her breath short and shaky though. The storm had passed, her fear had not. She kept looking up at the sky, scanning for shadows. Not from Earth's enemies, but from her own people. They stopped behind a ridge to catch their breath. Ethan looked at her, concerned. "Who are they?" he asked quietly, pointing to the sky. Lyria didn't answer right away. She crouched and drew shapes in the snow, her planet symbol, a royal crest, and then a sharp slash through it. Her violet eyes met his, filled with pain. "Family." "No more," she whispered. "They want me gone." Ethan didn't understand everything, but he understood enough. She was running not just from soldiers, but from her own blood, and whatever this strange bond between them was, it made her even more of a target. He stood up and scanned the horizon. A tall structure stood far in the distance, black against the white. It was a comms tower, part of the old human outpost. If they reached it, they could call for help, maybe even get off the planet. But it was risky, too open, too exposed. "We move at dusk," Ethan said softly. "Less light, less chance of being seen." Lyria nodded, her hand never leaving his. As the sky dimmed, they began their slow journey again. The snow had hardened under the evening cold, making the path easier but louder. Ethan kept one hand near his rifle, eyes scanning every shape, every shadow. Lyria suddenly tugged his sleeve, then dropped to the ground. Ethan followed without question. Above them, a drone passed by, sleek, silver, and silent. It hovered, scanning the ground with a beam of pale blue light. Lyria trembled, her entire body pressed flat against the ice. Ethan could feel her fear through the bond. It buzzed in his chest like a warning. But the drone moved on, disappearing into the clouds. They got up again and hurried forward, breath quickening. Lyria pointed toward a narrow path that led into a canyon of jagged rocks. It was tight, but it would give them cover. Ethan followed her lead, letting her guide him through the maze. The air inside the canyon was colder, and the wind howled like voices whispering warnings. But they pushed forward. Suddenly, a sound broke through the silence. Footsteps, multiple, heavy, not human. Ethan pulled Lyria behind a boulder, his pulse racing. Voices echoed down the canyon, sharp and harsh in a language he didn't know. Lyria tensed, her hand gripping Ethan's coat tightly. He peeked out carefully and saw them, 3 armored aliens with weapons drawn. Their eyes glowed faintly, and their movements were trained, precise. They weren't scouts, they were hunters. Lyria's breathing became erratic, and Ethan could feel panic rising inside her. She shook her head over and over, whispering, "No, not them." "Not him." Ethan looked again, and that's when he saw one of the hunters remove his helmet. His skin was like Lyria's, blue with faint glowing lines, but colder, sharper, and his face held no kindness, only cruelty. Lyria looked away, burying her face into Ethan's chest. "Who is he?" Ethan whispered. She spoke just one word, her voice shaking. "Brother." Ethan's heart dropped. The one chasing her wasn't just some enemy, it was family. He held her closer, whispering, "I won't let him take you." But the sound of their whisper carried just enough to be heard. A sharp click echoed through the canyon. The hunters had stopped. One of them raised a scanner, another pointed in their direction. Ethan grabbed Lyria's hand and ran deeper into the canyon. No more hiding, no more waiting. They had to move. Blaster fire lit up the rocks, blue beams flashing past them. Stone shattered beside Ethan's head, sending shards into his arm. He grunted but didn't stop. Lyria glanced back, raised her hand, and suddenly, the rocks behind them moved. A wall of ice rose up, blocking the hunter's path. Ethan turned in shock. "You can do that?" he asked, panting. Lyria looked drained, her knees shaking. "Only with Bond," she whispered, falling into his arms. He held her close, feeling the heat fade from her skin. The power she used had cost her, but it had saved them for now. They reached the edge of the canyon just as night fell completely. Tower was now closer, blinking red in the dark. Ethan knew they didn't have much time soon. Her brother and the others would break through the wall. They had to reach that tower call for help before it was too late. He looked at Lyria. Again, unconscious but breathing. The glow in her veins had faded, but the bond between them pulsed steady and strong. She trusted him, and now her life was in his hands. Ethan carried her in his arms, stepping out into the frozen night. And with every step he knew this wasn't just about survival anymore. This was a fight for something deeper, a fight for someone worth protecting. No matter what came next. The frozen night wrapped around Ethan like a tight cloak. Snow crunched under his boots as he carried Lyria in his arms. Her head rested against his chest, her body weak and cold again. The glowing lines on her skin had faded. Now only faint sparks remained. He kept moving, one step at a time, toward a dark opening in the cliffside. A narrow cave hidden from view. Half covered in icicles, it wasn't much, but it was shelter. And right now, that was all they had. Ethan ducked into the cave and set Lyria down gently. The walls inside sparkled, not with snow but with crystals. Blue and violet stones pulsed with dim light. The air was cold, but strangely still. Almost silent, Ethan lit his small heat capsule and placed it beside her, then sat down, breathing heavily, trying to listen for signs of pursuit. But there was only quiet, the kind of quiet that felt heavy, ancient, and alive. Lyria stirred slowly, her eyes fluttering open when she saw the crystals. Her face changed, not fear but awe. She reached out with a trembling hand and touched the wall. The crystal under her fingers began to glow brighter, and then the cave spoke. A deep hum filled the air, like a song trapped inside stone. Lights rippled across the walls, as if they were responding to her touch. Ethan stood up fast, hand on his sidearm, but Lyria whispered, "No." "Safe." Then her voice changed, slightly deeper, clearer. She said words Ethan didn't understand, ancient and melodic. The cave answered back in the same language. Suddenly, a beam of light shone from the ceiling and scanned both of them. Ethan raised his hands, unsure what was happening. The voice returned, this time in English. Lineage confirmed, royal presence detected, protector identified. The beam focused on Ethan, bond registered. Human designation Ethan Grant. Ethan blinked, confused. What the hell is this place? Lyria slowly sat up, her energy returning just enough to speak. "This is temple of my people," she said. "Old, forgotten, sacred." Ethan helped her to her feet, looking around in awe. The walls were no longer just stone. They were alive with moving lights and symbols. Ancient drawings of Lyria's kind, holding hands with humans, standing side by side in battle. It looked like a story carved in glowing stone. "This place knows me?" Ethan asked. Lyria nodded. "Yes. Bond made it see you," she said. "You are chosen now." Ethan shook his head. "I didn't choose anything, but deep down, he knew something had changed since that night in the sleeping bag. It wasn't just a physical connection. It was something older, stronger, deeper. The temple voice returned. "To protect the air, the bond must be completed." Lyria looked at Ethan, then slowly turned away. She walked to the center of the cave where a platform rose from the ground. She placed her hand on it, and the lights grew brighter. "My people fear my blood," she whispered. "I carry old power from the first age. They want to erase me. Erase the past." She turned to face him, eyes glowing faintly again. "But the bond, it changed that." Ethan stepped closer, unsure what she meant. Lyria reached for his hand. "To complete bond, you must accept," she said, "freely. If not, I die soon." Ethan looked at her, truly looked. Her eyes showed no tricks, no lies, just fear and hope. She wasn't asking for power or protection. She was asking for trust, for belief. He took her hand. "What happens if I say yes?" he asked, voice low. "Then I live," she said. "And you feel everything." Ethan hesitated only a moment, then nodded. I accept. The moment their hands locked, the platform lit up beneath them. A pulse of energy shot through their bodies. Ethan fell to his knees, gasping as visions flooded his mind. A younger Lyria hiding in a temple, crying. Her brother leading guards to drag her away. Flashes of stars, war, and sorrow then. Warmth, comfort, him Ethan offering her a sleeping bag, offering her safety. When the visions stopped, Ethan looked at Lyria. She had tears in her eyes, but she smiled. You saw. She whispered. Now you know. He did. He saw her pain, her fight, her loneliness, and now it was his too. The cave grew dim again. The platform sinking into the floor. The voice spoke one last time. Bond complete. Protector confirmed. Path forward unlocked. Suddenly, a new doorway opened in the wall behind them. A tunnel lit with golden light, leading into unknown depths. Ethan helped Lyria to her feet once more. Their hands stayed joined this time. Naturally, without thought, they walked toward the new path. Not as strangers, not even as allies, but as something more. Outside, the blizzard returned, louder and fiercer, but the cave held firm, and the bond between them glowed like fire in the dark. What lay ahead was still a mystery, but whatever it was, they would face it together. The golden tunnel stretched before them, quiet and glowing. Ethan walked beside Lyria, their hands still linked. The bond between them was now more than warmth. It was a deep connection, heart to heart, mind to mind. Each step they took, Ethan could feel her emotions like ripples through water, fear, hope, and something else she tried to hide. Sorrow. The passage ended at a wide chamber, filled with floating crystals and silver vines that pulsed with life. At the center stood a tall, glowing statue of a woman, her features soft, royal, and familiar. Lyria stopped and bowed her head. That's my mother, she whispered. The last queen. Ethan looked at the statue, then at Lyria. Your princess? He asked carefully. She gave a faint nod, her eyes not meeting his. I was never crowned, she said. They feared what I could become. Before Ethan could speak, the air shimmered. A projection appeared, tall, regal, and blue-skinned like Lyria. Her eyes burned with cold intelligence, and her voice echoed like metal scraping glass. Lyria, the figure said, you were told never to return. Lyria stepped forward, her voice steady. I come as the heir, and not alone. She looked back at Ethan, who moved to her side. The queen's image turned to him, her face showing no emotion. A human? She said flatly, you bonded with one of them? Ethan felt a pressure in his chest. Her gaze wasn't just looking, it was reading him, testing him, judging him. I saved her, Ethan said, voice calm. She was dying. I gave her warmth. And she trusted me. I didn't know the bond would form, but I don't regret it. The queen's expression didn't change. She circled them slowly, her voice sharp. Do you even know what you've done? You've awakened powers long buried, called attention we didn't want. You've made her a beacon. Lyria lifted her chin, fire in her eyes. I am a beacon, she said, but not because of Ethan. I was born different. And you cast me out for it. He accepted me. For the first time. The queen's face softened, just a little. Difference is dangerous, she said. You carry the blood of the ancient ones. The bond makes that power grow. Unstable. Ethan took a step forward. Then help her, he said. Guide her, protect her. You're her mother. The queen turned to him, her voice colder. And you? Are you ready to die for her? Because once the others find her, they will come for both of you. No army, no planet, no species will be able to protect you. Ethan didn't look away. I didn't bond with her for safety, he said. I did it because she needed someone to stand by her, someone who wouldn't run. The queen went silent, her gaze lingering on her daughter. Finally, she raised one hand, and the chamber darkened. A large image formed in the airships, thousands of them, closing in on the planet. A fleet. They are coming, the queen said. Your brother has declared a holy purge. He calls you a threat to the stars, and the Human? A defiler. Lyria's hands clenched, her glow dimming. Then I will fight, she said quietly. I will not hide again. Ethan placed a hand on her shoulder, steady and strong. We'll fight together. The queen looked at them both. Long and hard, then she sighed. Perhaps. The old ways have failed, she turned to Ethan. If I let you leave, they'll track your bond signature. They'll find you wherever you go. Then we go where they least expect. Ethan said, Back to the human outpost. The queen raised an eyebrow. To Earth? Ethan shook his head. No, to Sector Base Delta. It's abandoned, but it has coms. Weapons and terrain we know. Let them come, we'll be ready. The queen stepped closer to Lyria. Reached out but didn't touch her. Her voice was low, heavy. If you fail, they will tear your bond apart. You will both die. Lyria didn't blink. Then we will die together, she said. A long silence followed, broken only by the hum of the cave. Finally, the queen nodded. Slowly, then go, she said. But take this. She waved her hand, and a silver pendant floated down into Lyria's hands. It holds my memory. And power, the queen whispered. You are still my daughter, Lyria. I may not understand your choice, but I will not stop you. Lyria bowed deeply, her voice shaking. Thank you, mother. The cave lights dimmed, and the projection vanished. Ethan and Lyria stood alone once more. But now, something had changed. She had her mother's blessing, silent and cold as it was. It mattered. As they turned to leave the cave, Ethan looked at her. You okay? He asked. Lyria nodded. No more hiding, she said. No more running, outside. The night sky cracked with distant thunder. Ships moved above the clouds, searchlights sweeping the ground. The hunt had begun. But so had their stand. The snow-covered cliffs of Sector 9 echoed with the sound of engines. Above the icy horizon, ships with sharp wings and glowing underbellies flew in tight formations. They weren't scouting anymore, they were hunting, and their target was clear. Lyria and Ethan had been marked. Inside a ruined outpost tower, Ethan adjusted the comms panel. Sparks flew, wires hissed, but he kept working. The antenna had been dead for years. But with power from his field core, it flickered to life beside him. Lyria stood at the broken window, staring at the skies. Her eyes were focused, no longer full of fear, only determination. They're close, she said quietly. I can feel them. Ethan looked up from the panel. You feel them? Through the bond? Lyria nodded. They're trying to find us by tracing me, she said. And they know. I'm not alone anymore. Outside, the first wave descended. 3 sleek drop pods slammed into the snow just beyond the base. Ethan grabbed his blaster and moved toward the window. Through the frost, he saw figures climbing out, tall, armored, deadly. At their center stood a familiar face. The same cold expression. The same sharp eyes. Her brother, Lyria, tensed beside him. Her glow brightened slightly, but her hands trembled. He will not stop, she whispered. Not until I'm gone. Ethan stepped closer and touched her shoulder. Then we stop them first. The outpost had old weapons, turrets, traps, energy coils. With Lyria's help, Ethan had reconnected some of them, but it wouldn't be enough for a long fight. They needed to buy time, or find a way to make them hesitate. Lyria, Ethan said, is there any way to use the bond? To confuse them, slow them down? Lyria hesitated, then nodded. Maybe, she said. But it will hurt. I can take it, Ethan replied. Without blinking, she looked at him, eyes soft with fear and something deeper. You trust me too much. I know, he said. But it's too late to stop now. The ground shook. Plasma fire exploded near the tower. The first attack had started. Ethan pulled Lyria back as glass shattered and debris flew. He activated the defense grid, and blue beams fired from hidden turrets. 2 enemy soldiers fell before they reached the wall, but more kept coming. Lyria raised her hands and whispered. In her language, the wind outside howled in response. Snow began to swirl faster, building into a storm, not natural, powered by her. Then she did something unexpected. She turned to Ethan and placed her palm against his chest. "Breathe," she said, and then the bond burned. Ethan staggered as visions slammed into him. Memories that weren't his. Feelings that didn't belong to him. Her training, her punishment, her exile. He saw her as a child, locked in a room made of light. He saw her brother's face twisted with hate. He saw her scream, and nobody came. He dropped to his knees. Gasping, Lyria knelt with him, holding his shoulders. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I had to show you what he is." Now Ethan understood her brother wasn't just power-hungry. He was obsessed with control. Lyria's bond with a human had broken his image of strength. He saw her as a threat to their legacy. More explosions rocked the tower. Walls cracked, alarms screamed. Ethan stood, pain still in his chest, but his mind was sharper now. "They're trying to surround us," he said. "We break out before they trap us completely." He helped Lyria onto a side ledge overlooking the frozen canyon. A long drop below, but a narrow path curled downward. It was their only exit. As they moved along the edge, a loud voice echoed through the valley. "Lyria!" Her brother's voice, twisted with fury. "Come out and face me or watch your human die." They stopped. Ethan turned to her. "You don't have to," he said. But Lyria stepped forward. She stood at the edge, the wind lifting her silver-white hair. "I am not yours to control," she shouted back. "I choose my path and I choose him." Her voice rang like thunder, shaking the air itself. Suddenly, a blast of energy flew from below meant to strike Ethan. But Lyria leapt in front of it, raising her hands. The shot hit her square in the chest, but instead of falling, she absorbed it. The pendant from her mother glowed bright, spinning with light. Ethan rushed to her side. She stood, still breathing, but weaker now. "That power, it protects me," she whispered. "But it won't last forever." The enemy was climbing fast. They were almost upon them. Ethan helped Lyria down the icy trail. Step by step, the cold burned his skin, but he didn't stop. He wouldn't leave her behind. They reached the lower cliffs and ducked into a crack between two giant rocks. Lyria collapsed in his arms, shaking. "I can't use my power again." "Not like that." Ethan held her tightly, his voice steady even as ships flew overhead. "Then we use mine," he said. And he looked up at the stars. They had little time left, but they had each other, and sometimes that was all the fight you needed. The stars above Sector 9 flickered cold and distant, but down on the icy cliffs, two lives burned with quiet fire. Ethan knelt beside Lyria, holding her close as her breath came slow and shallow. The pendant at her neck had lost its glow, and the bond between them now pulsed weakly. She had given everything to protect him, and now the choice rested with him. He looked up at the sky. Enemy ships circled like vultures, scanning every ridge and valley. Soon, her brother would find them, and this time, he would not offer warnings, only death. Ethan reached for the small transmitter. In his belt, it had one final burst of signal, enough to send a message. But not just any message. This one would go straight to the human command base orbiting the far side of the planet. A rescue request, but it would also reveal their exact location, meaning the enemy would come too, fast and ready. There would be no hiding after this. Lyria opened her eyes weakly. "You can still run," she whispered. Her voice was faint but calm. "They'll take me, but you'll live." Ethan shook his head. Slowly, "No," he said softly. "I didn't bond with you just to watch you be taken. We started this together. We finish it together." She smiled, a tear sliding down her cheek. "No human ever chose me before," he pressed. The transmitter, the signal flashed, and high above, a human ship blinked back in reply. Help was coming, but so was war. Minutes passed, and the sound of ships grew louder. From the ridge above, alien soldiers appeared, weapons drawn, glowing eyes full of purpose, and behind them, her brother, tall, powerful, armor shining with ancient marks. His voice echoed like thunder. You disappoint me, Lyria. She struggled to her feet, Ethan holding her steady. I was never yours to command, she said. Her brother's eyes narrowed. The bond with a human. It makes you less. It stains your blood, weakens your future. Ethan stepped forward. You're wrong, he said. It gave her strength. And you're afraid of that. The brother raised his hand, and weapons pointed at them. Then, before a single shot could fire, a massive roar filled the air. From above, streaks of light fell like comets. Human drop pods crashed down around the ridge, shaking the ground. Soldiers in exosuits charged forward, weapons blazing. The skies exploded with fire as drones battled overhead. Ethan pulled Lyria back, shielding her as the battle raged. Human soldiers took positions, covering them. One of them nodded at Ethan. Command says extractions in 2 minutes. Lyria looked around, stunned. They came for you, she said softly. Ethan looked at her, then smiled. No, he said, they came for us. Her brother roared with anger and pushed through his troops. He charged toward them, his blade glowing. Ethan stepped forward, weapon raised. But Lyria placed a hand on his arm. No, she whispered. Let me, though she could barely. Stand, she walked forward. The bond between them glowed one last time, stronger than before. As she stepped closer to her brother, the wind picked up. Her pendant lit up again, fueled not by tech, but by choice, by connection, by love. I am not broken, she said loudly. I am complete, and I don't need your approval anymore. Her brother froze, and for a moment, something flickered in his eyes. Shock, confusion, maybe fear. Then came a wave of light from her body, not violent, not destructive, but final. It pushed him back, gently but firmly, and the glow in his armor faded. He dropped to his knees, not dead, not wounded, but defeated. The battlefield fell silent. Even the ships paused overhead. Everyone watched as Lyria turned and walked back to Ethan. No one dared stop her. The extraction pod landed nearby. Snow flying into the air, Ethan helped her inside. And as the doors closed, he looked back at the battlefield. Aliens and humans still watched each other with caution. But something had changed. A bond had formed not just between Ethan and Lyria, but between two worlds. The pod lifted, rising. Through the icy air, inside, Lyria leaned on Ethan's shoulder, tired but alive. What now? She asked quietly. Ethan smiled. Now we go where they never thought we would, he said. To Earth. To start something new. Lyria looked out the window at the stars. Her voice soft but full of hope. I never thought I'd be free. He held her hand. You're not just free, he whispered. You're home. And as the stars opened before them, two hearts beat as one. Not human, not alien, something in between. Something stronger, something unexpected, but real.